Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we are back to another live stream of Hearthstone. Today is Friday, November 10th. We've got everything we need to do going here as far as getting 3 daily quests done for 3 different accounts. I think we're not in a terrible position though, because we have a watch and learn, which makes this start pretty well, and then we have win 5 tavern brawls, which kind of sucks. So let's watch and learn. Let's see, spectate. Hopefully we can get that done pretty quickly and get a victory there. Having to stop my uploading so that the video stream actually looks good, and we have a decent amount of news to talk about too. Some of the news I didn't even cover in the last recording. It just kind of hit a point where we had kind of done everything. Or, you know, what was it? Why did it end that way? I think I just kind of had enough. And I knew we weren't going to make a 3rd episode. So, that's part of it. Something about the announcements on Twitter now. I'm getting double announcements when I go live. And I guess I can't really complain too much about that other than maybe Twitter's. Let's see. Randy Pitchford seemed to tweet on a massive 12 tweets, all limiting themselves to the old 140 number of characters. So maybe he uses a cell phone app that isn't updated to the new 280 limit. The 280 character limit on Twitter has, for the first few days at least, been a nightmare, but it seems like it's now settling back down. Most people are getting down to the point where they're still just tweeting a single sentence, a single thought, which is good because I don't want my entire feed on Twitter to be paragraph after paragraph. Let's see. Let's find some video game news and cover it while we're spectating, since we're not really playing at all right now. This is an odd way to run a live stream. I mean, in theory, if you could friend or follow people without their request, I could potentially like friend Trump or Kriperian, anybody like that, and then just spectate them playing their game. Kind of how Twitch allows you to host other people and move your crowd over, except for on YouTube there was like no monetization metric for that, so I'd be literally taking money away from either Trump or Kriperian streams because they would have fewer viewers. Well, maybe. I don't know how you could do that in a fair and ethical manner. Electronic Arts, to start with the first bit of news, has bought Respawn for more than $4 million, and a new Titanfall is in the works. Now, it's important to try to get the events here all in a row because a lot of things have happened around all of this, and all of it seems like it's probably has more to do with just getting things done before the end of the year than anything else, like shareholders meetings and such. often trigger these actions. Electronic Arts recently shut down Visceral Games and laid off, I think, an unnamed amount of employees there, and canceled the Star Wars single-player experience that was being worked by Visceral Games. A lot of those things seem to be connected, and they probably were connected, but not so much, not direct connections. In a lot of ways, I think Visceral Games was doomed for failure by EA's terrible management skills after and even slightly before Dead Space 3, and that was way before Amy Hennig was brought over to Visceral Games, and they probably even started any real production on the Star Wars game. So that's kind of two different things. It's probably a better guess to say that Visceral Games was on the verge of being shut down around Dead Space 3, and they chose, instead of shutting it down, to give Amy Hennig a chance to make the Star Wars game. They weren't happy with the progress being made on the Star Wars game, and because of that, they because of that element, then they let Visceral Games and Amy Hennig have a try, and then that didn't work out, and they canceled that. So they shut down them, and they fired them. Now EA isn't spending money to pay the budget of those characters. Seems like WizBus here is playing that mage strategy. So now they have that money, and they can buy Respawn, and Respawn comes over to Electronic Arts was already the publisher for Respawn, so this kind of makes sense. It also makes a lot more sense because Respawn is being bought, from what I'm seeing in reports, for $400 million by EA, because another company that was like a Chinese company wanted to buy them for $400 million, and Electronic Arts had a contract with them to match or beat any offers to buy Respawn, and EA was effectively sort of forced into buying Respawn. So they had a good deal there, honestly. Like, it's kind of a, you protect us, you have the right at least to buy us, and we can stay working with you as a publisher. Not now from a publisher to now the owner of the company. And so people at Respawn are reporting that this is actually a good thing. Whereas most people on the outside would say, well, this just means Respawn is doomed to be shut down and doomed for failure. It is also worth mentioning, though, that Respawn is the company made up of employees who left the company that was also just shut down that made Torchlight 2. So the Torchlight developers, Torchlight 1, Torchlight 2, went over and made Respawn and made Titanfall, but probably because they didn't want to make any more Torchlights, and everybody that was left at that company has been shut down too. So there's been two companies that have been threatened to be shut down, and two companies that were shut down, and Respawn was on the verge of being bought out, and instead got bought out by Electronic Arts, and now it's perception-wise looking like it might get shut down, but it probably won't get shut down for at least a couple years, because they are they were already working with EA to make one of the many Star Wars games that EA has in the works. So now they're going to continue with that and make a Titanfall game. I wouldn't be surprised at this rate, though, if the people who made Torchlight 1 also then jump ship to Respawn so that they didn't have to make any more Torchlight, jump ship yet again to make a third company. This might just be business as usual for them to consistently leave companies once they're under control of somebody besides them, because they're creative people and they want to do it more. And I hope I explained that as well as I understand it, but frankly, you need a chart at this point. You just need a huge chart. A lot of people are going to report that EA buying Respawn is just going to mean the death for Respawn, and it might mean the death for the company in a couple years. Certainly, the EA does roll that way, but I don't think it really means the death for the people that are important at Respawn, because they seem to be more fluid than even most programmers and makers of games, and they seem to be capable of just switching jobs and starting new companies. It's very possible that in EA buying out Respawn, several of the people that worked at Respawn had stock options at for Respawn, and they made a pretty penny, and that just might be more money for them to go fund their own independent company. It's a shame that they can't find some solid long-term ground, though, like Cyan. Cyan is the company that made Myst and is still around, and is just a small company. They most recently made Abduction. They're still around, and they seem to be able to pay their own bills by being just kind of careful with their money and constantly remaking and reselling the good things that they have under their titles. And I think that's kind of the problem that the people who created Respawn are having more than anything, is that if they had managed to hold on to the rights of Torchlight 1, and they were reselling and remaking Torchlight 1 and Torchlight 2, and like, even if they just had a side team that they don't even care about making a Torchlight 3, but if they were just making money off of that, that would be very helpful. You see that on Activision Blizzard too, where World of Warcraft is some pretty easily guaranteed income, or at least it was for many years, and that allowed them to fund and make things like Overwatch and Heroes of the Storm and Hearthstone. And Hearthstone looks as good as it does and is as varied as it is because they had that extra money in that foundation. If the makers of Respawn quit Respawn and move on to a new company, they're not going to have the rights to Titanfall. They're not going to have the rights to Torchlight. So they're going to have to start over yet a third time, make a new series, and hope it becomes an amazing success to fund all future projects. That was a long explanation, certainly, for that first story, but that was also probably the most complicated stories. This is kind of in the spirit of, this next story is in the spirit of not being complicated. LA Noire Remastered has changed the infamous interrogation button prompts. So, instead of truth, doubt, and lie, which were the prompts, you now have good cop, bad cop, and accuse. And I am not sure if that's really going to is that really gonna connect to all of the lines of dialogue that were already in the game? Or have they just done a very simplistic change here that's still not gonna work? Let's see. Like, I really have to wonder what it would be like to... You'd almost have to play LA Noire in its original form and then play the mission again in the Switch remastered form. Like, because the good cop, bad cop element still doesn't really explain things, and unless they've changed the reactions. Like, maybe there are people that would want to play LA Noire and always be the good cop, and maybe there are people that play LA Noire and always want to be the bad cop, and or maybe there's people that always want to accuse. It still doesn't really explain that this is a weird rock paper scissors game that doesn't fully make sense. It also, on the Switch screen, I don't know if you can get those facial movements as easily as you would be able to on the TV screen. So the change may be very superficial. On a side note, good cop, bad cop really doesn't work too well with the main character in the game, because by the time you're done with that game, Phelps, the character you play as, is clearly a bad cop. He's not an awful cop, but he's... and we see worse cops there, but he's not a great cop either. I also kind of have to wonder, maybe they'll change some of the other chase sequences or falling sequences, because I was having a lot more trouble with those sequences when they came up on occasions. Seriously, WizBiz, this is a great example of just like, you cannot play things that are just the same strategy over and over again, that win once and that's it. Like, he's lost again. How does he get to rank 16 at this point? Wizard. Ice block. Yeah, I think LA Noire still kind of needs some work. Honestly, it needs to completely have reworked the interrogation sequences where there was some background thoughts being vocalized by Phelps. So Phelps would say, I think that's a lie, but I don't have the evidence for it. I should doubt. Or, I think that's a lie, but what can I say to prove that it's a lie? It needs a little bit more hand-holding. LA Noire is a weird game, and it's barely a game, except for when you get to the car collecting element, which there's another element that could have been changed and edited out. LA Noire is also a weird game to put on the Switch if you look at the Switch as a kid's console, which is probably not the right way to look at it. Yep, he lost again. Like, he must win some amount by playing that trick. Or maybe he just plays that deck for fun, but then why would he be playing ranked? The Legends of the Heroes, Trails of Cold Steel, and Trails of Cold Steel 1 and 2 are coming to PS4 in September. All 3 of those titles. So that's 3 different games. Legends of the Heroes. The Legends of Heroes Trails of Cold Steel is one. Then Trails of Cold Steel 1 and 2. All 3 of them are expected out by September 2018. And they're going to be for the PS4. Let's see, The Legend of Heroes Trails of Cold Steel is currently available for PS3, Vita, and PC, and its sequel, The Legend of Heroes Trails of Cold Steel 2, is available for PlayStation 3, PS Vita, with plans for a PC release in the future. PC still falling behind a little bit in these Japanese games. So, here's a Gama Sutra article talking about how paying for content ratings is hurting developers who release in Europe, because apparently you have to be rated in Europe by PEGI, which also is kind of true in the United States. If you want to sell a game physically in any store, it has to be rated, because almost any major chain in the United States, Walmart, Target, GameStop, either want that rating for 18 plus adults only, or they want a confirmation through the ESRB in the United States that it's not an 18 plus or an adults only game. 18 plus being the PEGI ratings. And so if you're an independent, then you have to pay to get reviewed by PEGI, and according to this article, they're roughly paying $300 to $1,000 per platform for a PEGI rating. And it would be nice, I guess, in this quote, they say it'd be nice if they just get rid of the charge. But PEGI isn't going to do that. There is also a more insidious game issue here, where the ESRB and possibly PEGI 2 and possibly all of these organizations are run by the same people who run major companies, and it's the same thing for movie ratings too. We know for a fact that the movie ratings board treats big movie productions a lot nicer and gives them help to avoid being rated higher, whereas small independent people get higher ratings, and there's just a bias there which lowers their potential market. But as we get more and more to the point of everything being digital and digital released, and indie games in particular being focused on digital releases, it's not a big deal as much. It's not. It's probably 4th, 5th, 6th down the line of list of things that are hurting games as far as a forced censorship or something like that happening. It kind of is censorship. It's kind of just unfairness. The world is always unfair. And always will be. But we are seeing, on the other hand, Steam. Seems like you can easily put a game on Steam now with Steam Direct for $100. You don't have to get it rated. The rating system on Steam is actually total garbage. It's impossible to search games that are child friendly. It would be nice if Steam introduced just a community guideline way in which you could rate games for their age appropriateness, and then the publisher can say what their age appropriateness is too, and then you could have both. It'd be very interesting to see what the entire community of Steam people thinks is age appropriate compared to what a creator says, because creators would probably say it's E for everyone, and then they could flag things that are not age appropriate. But that's, I guess, all I have to say about that. So Ghost Story Games is hiring an experienced programmer. If I recall correctly, Ghost Story Games is the company that made Firewatch. So before you even start, do you want to work with somebody who is let's see, somebody who's not very smart to begin with? I'm wrong. Let me rephrase that. Ghost Story Games is the new name for Ken Levine's small group that made BioShock and BioShock Infinite. So you don't have to worry about that. Then you just have to worry about, do you want to be a programmer on a small team that made BioShock Infinite and doesn't want to make any more BioShock? The location is Westwood, Massachusetts. Their mission is to create immersive, story-driven games for people who love games that ask something of them. What they're looking for: Ghost Story Games, formerly known as Irrational Games, best known for BioShock franchise, is seeking a highly experienced and talented senior programmer. That's not good. That tells you that Ghost Story Games in general has not started anything but like concept and storyboarding on their next project, and it's been a few years since BioShock Infinite. In this role, you're directly responsible for creating efficient and effective coding in support of our development and QA teams with a focus on QA automation and tools of game analytics. In the role, you will be responsible for additional programming support, which may include general gameplay features, tools, graphics, rendering, and other engine technologies. So, not only are you the senior programmer, you're also the head of the QA department, and you're also going to be asked to pitch in on lower level programming things. This does not bode well for Ghost Story Games. Like, people talk about how people start advertising games like No Man's Sky and saying there's going to be features and getting people hyped, and just basically false advertising on games. But a job listing, if you look at it and if it gets seen and reported on enough, can do almost as much damage to the development and the potential hype of a release of a game as promising something that won't be there. And this job listing in particular, the way I see it, is either Ghost Story Games has not been programming anything up to this point, or they have been programming things and then their senior programmer quit or got fired. And if that's the case, that's not good either. What they offer: the opportunity to work in a creatively ambitious project in the immersive sim genre. So it's a simulation game? That's not really a great offering in the first place. What we offer: the opportunity to work, period. We offer you a job. Of course, this is a job listing. A world-class team. The next bullet point: a world-class team. We are proud to be home of some of the most talented, smartest, nicest, and hardest working colleagues. We make mistakes sometimes, but we will help each other by finding mistakes early and depending on each other to fix them quickly. So again, this sounds more like a cult than a job listing. And come join our cult. Now, I did see Ken Levine in the credits of, I think, BioShock Infinite or Bioshock 1 Remastered, and he was being like super nice to the voice actors for no reason, and it was like you're not even treating them like employees, you're treating them like your friends. And I think I may have heard some other stories from other reporters that he's considered a really nice guy, which honestly makes me feel like he's probably a bit of a pushover and a little weak on running his business. Or he's more focused on being around friends than he is actually making a product, which might very well be the truth. Next bullet point, we are a core development team that is just under 30 people, and we work closely with the specialist outsourced groups and contractors when necessary. Yeah, it seems like he's just trying to make a circle of friends. And then, of course, they're going to work with outsourcing groups and contractors, which, you know, that doesn't help video game programming in particular. Like, programming with outsourcing and contractors helps shut down or slow down communication and makes it a slower process. That's generally why programmers of video games are in the same office in the first place, when theoretically everybody could just be working from home. You need people in the same office so you can have conversations and you can be on the same page. Otherwise, one person's going to think one thing and another person's going to think another. Next bullet point, ironically, is open communication. Our team members are welcome to join any meeting. That's not good. So let's say somebody is having a meeting to discuss, like, somebody doing something completely inappropriate or somebody that needs to be fired. Anybody is allowed to walk in there. I mean, that's downright potentially illegal. And we have a flat structure, and flat structures don't work in business ever at all. It just doesn't work. Like, somebody has to be in charge, and if they have a flat structure, then you being a senior programmer kind of means nothing, doesn't it? Do you have a question or concern? Just walk up to anyone and ask. Team-based decision making is important to us, regardless of your position. Every opinion counts and it is considered. So yeah, this tells me Ken Levine wants friends. He doesn't want to run a business. He doesn't have that mean boss bone in his body, which tells me that we're never gonna see a Ghost Story game at this rate, not unless somebody else comes in and finishes the job for him. Next bullet point, flexible hours. We understand that sometimes people need to juggle work and family life, so we have flexible work hours, and the support structure allows people to work from home if needed. Every Friday is default WFH day for us. No meetings planned for that day. I guess WFH means work from home. Next bullet point is the space colon. We love our studio's space and all the comfortable perks that come with it, such as a fully stocked kitchen, drinks, fruit, snacks, breakfast food, plenty of shops, shops and restaurants, and urgent care services within walking distance. Also, the restaurants, shops, and urgent cares aren't part of the place, they're just near. A game room, a quiet room, outdoor deck, free parking, public transportation connection, including the Amtrak train into Boston, plus New York, and maybe, just maybe, we have a bathysphere whiskey bar. Which I guess that means they do have a bathysphere whiskey bar. And at this point, I can't get away with just spectating anymore. I'm going to have to actually play. I'm going to have to play Tavern Brawls too. So you can see why video games have microtransactions. Like, to make a spurious claim I could never prove here. Like, when every single video game development company is taunting and flaunting the fact that they've they've decided to make their office something other than an office, this luxury nightclub instead. You kind of see where the money went. Let's see. Will this one work for me? I don't know. I may have to just beat people on tavern balls. And I don't think anybody wants to challenge me on a tavern ball. That's the problem. And so, like, some of these offerings that they're talking about are legitimate. Flexible hours makes sense, but open communication doesn't make sense. It means this is a rudderless, leaderless company. Working with nice people is BS because that comes and goes. You can't put that as a sales pitch of your company ever, because you hire one person, he ruins the dynamic. Everybody's mad at each other now, or everybody's mad at him, he's mad at everybody else. Maybe somebody comes in and they're really good at spreading rumors and causing conflict otherwise. Like, you can't maintain that, nor should you really try. You just want a professional work environment. You don't want people to be friends. People being friends, it just makes it so much worse when somebody feels like they've been disrespected or mistreated. Because then it changes from, I feel like it was, it changes from feeling like being mistreated by an co-worker to being mistreated by your friend. Let's go ahead and kill that. The last thing they have is, the next bullet point actually, is free merchandise. Every new employee is welcome with an onboarding swag package. Oh my goodness, they're giving you swag? Nobody legitimately wants that garbage to make sure they blend right in. Again, this is a cult. They're gonna give you clothes and items and other kinds of items to join the cult. Are they going to give you a free haircut to match everybody else and make sure you're blonde and have blue eyes while they're at it? Free facelift for all the ugly people so everybody looks good. I'm joking, of course, about any of that. Let's continue reading. Additionally, each of the team members can expect to receive new merchandise item every time one goes live in our fan store. For fans of the other Take-Two studios, there's a discounted employee store where you can find latest games and swag from our sister studios. I mean, this is just ridiculous. It's laughably stupid that any professional for even a second would to think that any professional for a second would be more inclined to apply to work here because they're getting your garbage that you sell to kids. Like, and literally, if you did have an employee that was all into the swag and was super obsessed with like Bioshock and Bioshock Infinite, he's probably not a good fit for the company in the first place. Just in the fact that they're not going to make any more Bioshock games. We know they're not going to. So let's go ahead and silence this character and then change an attack equal to its health. This card wouldn't even work, so we'll just end there. Last bullet point on what we offer before it even gets to the requirements. Like, they're so desperate to get you interested in applying that they haven't even gotten to the requirements, and that kind of goes to show that they are completely backwards here. They should be going the other way. It should be, we have a job, here's the title of the job, here's a short description, here's the requirements. Do you meet these requirements? If you don't meet these requirements, stop reading at this point. And instead of saying, no, you don't meet the requirements, stop reading at this point, it's got people that are going to be completely unqualified for the job trying to do it. Let's see, what can we kill without any trouble? This. I guess that works. The final bullet point is on-site support, a world-class IT and operations teams to make sure that you get what you need to do what is best. They keep us working, fed, hydrated, and happy. What? So apparently the operations team is like butlers, maids type thing. Like I guess I've seen some janitor positions labeled operation teams, but yeah, it seems like somebody is pushing around a food cart and giving you food and drink.
I can't play that.
Throughout that whole time. Besides a friendly minion, draw a card. Just go ahead and play this.
Job's done.
And then in the turn. Like, I had a job once that did require me to be working on a computer almost non-stop for 8 hours, and I suppose as a YouTube video person, if I work an 8-hour shift, which I never do, I still have a job that would require me to be on the computer for 8 hours. I guess I'm slightly well suited to that. And it did occur to me that it would be nice if somebody was just every 20 minutes walking by with snacks or food or water and just saying, hey, would you like a refill? Kind of like a waiter or waitress. So it's not a terrible thought, but it's a little odd, certainly. Not very many companies go in for that idea because it's awkward. It is very awkward that they don't want people interacting with other employees that you think are of a completely lower class and completely beneath you. That's why often companies will try to keep the janitorial staff away from any of the other employees, that they'll show up at later times or when people are out, and just to keep people out of the way, but also for that same interaction. And janitorial staff in general try to stay away from other employees. This is not gonna work.
It's time for a little job's done.
Let's see. Full team catered lunches for new employee welcomes and significant team meetings, ? So anytime there's a team meeting in which you're welcome to walk in and you see food, you can just come in the meeting. I mean, how inefficient is your meeting going to be if you cater it and then half of the entire office comes in and eats, and like only 5 people needed to be in there and have a conversation? But I guess at that point, if you want to have a real meeting, you don't bring in food, and if you want to have a fake meeting, you do bring in food. Let's try something different here. Let's make a mage deck, because that makes sense. And that, wow, it only have one of those. And let's do that. And I still don't have everything I need. Polymorph that. Mirror image. Freeze. 2 damage all minions. Vaporize. 1 damage all enemy minions, that'll work well. Spellbender. Ice block. Ice barrier. And what do I want to get rid of? That one. For that. And we'll get rid of that one for that. And yeah, there's still a lot of work that could be done. Let's mirror image. Alright, let's give that a try. Being only allowed to have 30 cards is starting to become a real problem. We're still talking about the on-site support. Receiving your online shopping orders, getting you an aspirin when needing, they have your back. So they're basically butlers at that point. They do everything you ask them to do. I don't want to use the phrase slave because I assume they're being paid, but I mean, getting you an aspirin when needed, they have your back. And I have a theory here that I can't ever prove, that at some point there was the idea of writing they'll give you a back rub per request, and they changed that because that wouldn't fly. Great Places to Work has certified our workplace culture. At Ghost Story Games, 96% of the employers say their workplace is good, which ties us for first spot in the games industry. Wow. So now you're sold. Like, right, everybody's gonna be completely sold to work here. Let's now get to the requirements to work there as a senior programming. The responsibilities. Support high quality and robust game features and systems by getting requirements, designing solutions, implementing efficient code, testing and debugging. That seems right for a senior programmer. Nothing too crazy there. Implement automation and other tools to streamline the QA process for highly systematic games, which is to say that because they're making a sim game, which I don't know what kind of sim game they're going to make that's going to be fun, it's going to be so complicated that you can't do QA just by hand, just by playing the game. Support build automation process as needed, which, okay, that probably means they're using something like Git or some other automated programming build system. Let's see, support analytics backend development is needed, which is to say that they're going to put something in their games, as several people do, that gives you analytics on how the players are playing their game, which tells me the Sims game is probably going to be online, and then it kind of sounds like they're making an actual sequel to the latest Sims game, like The Sims. Let's see. Do this. Didn't do this. Then play this.
Just like you.
Job's done.
Participate on development of low-level systems like streaming, generic serializations, and entirely in the entity system and more. That probably doesn't mean too much like that to anybody but a programmer, and even to me who has been educated in programming, this sentence doesn't make too much sense. Development of low-level systems like streaming, generic serializations, entity systems, and more. Some of that makes sense, like you would be making a game like The Sims and then it would randomly generate a character, and then that randomly generated character is going to require you to give it a label, a unique identification number. Yeah, it really does sound like they're making something like The Sims. I have no idea why you would have Ken Levine making The Sims. Participate in group collaboration and utilize engineering best practices such as code reviews. Which, okay, that sounds right. That means other people are going to look at your code and make sure it's written well. Work with all the departments to ensure that we're using the most effective, efficient systems and tools needed to realize the vision of the game. I think there's a lot underlying that statement about Ken Levine having a vision for a game and not really having a finished product. And then create efficient, scalable, optimized codes while working with third-party libraries and tools, which is to say that they aren't going to be working with proprietary software completely, at least. And that's responsibilities. Here's what we're looking for, or the actual requirements. They want 5+ years of experience in the game industry. So if you don't have that, forget it. You don't get the special what was it? Whiskey bar. You don't get the butlers. You don't get any of that without 5 years plus experience in the game industry. And it's not even in a comparable field. It's the game industry that they want, which generally you'd open it up a little bit more. And often you'll see these job listings are only put out to then hire somebody that they already had in mind, but just to cover themselves legally as an equal opportunity employee, they have to put out a job listing publicly. Okay, the second thing you have to have done is have shipped at least one highly rated PC game with a Metacritic rating of 85+, which honestly at that point you could probably have the list of people who could actually even apply for this job and make the requirements down to a list of less than a couple hundred people. If you just took all the senior programmers or programmers and in every game that was rated 85+ on Metacritic, maybe if you took all the programmers you'd get it up to a couple thousand people in all of the world. Have architectured or significantly improved build systems and systematic QA tools. It seems very unlikely that a lot of qualified people would have done that, but whatever. At this point it's pretty obvious that they know who they want to hire, they just aren't saying. That spell was actually a terrible spell to play because it was only 0 mana. So that's a bad one to have in this deck. Candidates with graphic and rendering experience strongly preferred. Experience with C, C++, and C# skills. C# is written C number sign, by the way, for anybody that is unfamiliar with how that's spelled. Let's see. Experience programming with Unreal 4 is a strong requirement. So yeah, I was pretty sure BioShock was made in Unreal, and so yeah, you're gonna be doing your C++, C programming in Unreal. Ability to quickly understand existing code and enhance and extend an existing structure. Now this one is actually kind of a landmine, because that heavily depends on what the existing code is. If your code is garbage to begin with, nobody's going to be able to understand it. If your code is well documented and written well, most senior programming level people would be able to understand it. This line of a requirement says there is existing code, and it seems if they're making a game like The Sims, it would be hard to take that code from BioShock Infinite, so that code must be coming from something else, or it's coming from the previous senior programmer, which I'm leaning more and more to thinking that's what happened here. Experience with Perforce. Perforce. Never heard of it. Never heard of it at all. We got somebody on the chat on the Friday thing saying hello. Let's see. Hello. Like, whoever you are, he looks like a spammer, but he just said hello. His name is Ball Plays and Roblox and more. That sounds like a spammer to me. I saw an article about people trying to sneak inappropriate videos onto YouTube Kids, assumedly for ad revenue reasons, and they would do like completely inappropriate videos for some reason, and yet then they would title it so it would get into the YouTube Kids app so kids would watch it? I don't know. It seems like trolling. He says, I'm Barley. And no, it's not a spammer. Okay, that's good to know. Like, most spammers probably would have posted spam by this point too. It's just a really weird name you've got up for your channel. But lots of people do that. Lots of people get really weird names, particularly for YouTube, because nobody thought for a second that we would ever use YouTube names for anything. Let's see, what's the next requirement for the senior programming job with Ghost Story Games? Let's see, ability to research, analyze, and optimize code to meet the performance requirements. That seems legitimate. You would need that as a senior programmer. Ability to work within a schedule and deliver effectively to deadlines. Not particularly the best skill that programmers have, but it is a job requirement. It's legitimate. Self-motivated towards solving problems. Okay, good. Good for a programmer, good for anybody to have that. You should always put self-motivated on any kind of resume, because it's one of those impossible claims. Like, you can, unless you actually tell your boss you're not self-motivated, they can't prove you're wrong. Must be eligible to work in the U.S. or willing to relocate to Boston. Deep knowledge of and experience with first-person shooters, actions, RPG strategy, and / immersive Sims games. So yeah, I don't fully get this because they're calling this game an immersive sim, but it doesn't feel like that's really what they could possibly be making. Like the makers of BioShock and BioShock Infinite, I really have a hard time believing that they're making The Sims 5. But they're making some kind of simulation or something that they call a sim. But this last requirement seems to be it's going to be more like BioShock, where it's a first-person shooter first, then action, then RPG, then strategy, and finally an immersive sim. Let's see. He said he just... Barley says... I just wanted to talk and watch somebody play Hearthstone. Okay. I'll talk to you and respond to your chat as much as I can as I'm covering this job application in the video game industry. I've started covering job applications, and you know, it's an interesting thing to do to kill the time while trying to get the daily quests done on Hearthstone. And it's a little bit, it breaks up the other video game news that I usually cover. Like, wow, I'm gonna actually get a victory here. So the additional requirements are excellent communication skills, collaborations, interpersonal and organizational skills, commitment to code quality, documentation, and thorough testing procedures. Passion for narrative first-person shooters is a plus. Experience working with an outsourcing is a plus. So it seems like the majority of the programming is going to be outsourced, which doesn't make the next game from Ken Levine sound like it's going to be that great. So for the most part, being a senior programmer at Ghost Story Games is this, according to this job listing, a decent job, but it is going to be joining something of more of a cult than actually programming a game at a professional work environment. It's clear, well, I have heavy suspicions at least, that Ken Levine wants to be your friend. He's going to be the boss of the office. He wants everybody to get along. He wants everybody to be friends. He wants everybody to be happy, and I think he would take that over actually getting a game done. So a job listing like this actually does a lot of damage in my confidence of there being a Ghost Story Games, formerly known as Irrational Games game, coming out anytime soon, and it being great. Particularly the outsourcing is confusing. The fact that they're looking for a senior programmer when they should already have had a senior programmer at this point. It's been several years since BioShock Infinite, so I'm concerned about that. Let's see. Barley. Barley goes, am I the only one watching? It's a possibility. I don't sweat that too much. Compared to my pre-recorded footage, the way YouTube is and the way its algorithm works, when I live stream, the longer I go, the more it gets recommended later. And so a live stream of Hearthstone gets me, sadly, a lot more views than anything that I pre-record and have on my channel. So I have over like 5,000 videos. Most of them have less than 10 views. My hope is, in comparison to doing a YouTube channel to a Twitch channel, my hope is that those old videos will start getting recommended as more and more people see the live stream and subscribe, and more people find my content entertaining. Also, it just works better to live stream Hearthstone. I live stream it now, then I break it up into episodes, and then I rebroadcast those episodes several months from now. And in the meantime, there are at least 1 or 2 occasions every week where somebody comes on the chat and they take me in different directions. They ask me different things, and I don't end up having to say the same thing over and over again. A lot of what I have to do when nobody's on the chat is simply just read the news of video games, and I need to read the video game news anyways because I'm a video game critic, so I need to be informed, and it's probably nice to inform my audience, but I would much prefer to interact with people. See, like Barley says, I feel like your channel should be bigger. I agree. I have heard a lot of people say that. Lots and lots of people say that my channel should be bigger. I feel like it should be at least to 1,000 subscribers, because that's when, like, YouTube has now set the minimum number of subscribers that for channels they even care about is 1,000. It would be nice if it was up to 10,000 subscribers. If I got it up to 100,000, then this channel would be probably as good as I would like it to be. I'm not shooting for millions and millions of views or anything like that. I'm just shooting for being able to do what I love, which is play video games and review them, and being able to earn enough money to live off of that. And currently at the time that's not the case at all. Anyways, like I said, I break up these episodes, so stay tuned if you're watching live, but if you're watching this pre-recorded, that's going to be it for this episode. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want to friend or follow me on basically any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.